So it is one of the hallmarks of his presidency, the CHIPS Act, a $280 billion boost to try to accelerate the production of those high-tech chips that we rely on every single day and to counter China. The president announcing the largest grant yet, some $8 billion to Intel.
There's not a damn thing America can't do if we set our mind to it. It's going to put us on track to manufacture 20% of the world's leading-edge chips by the end of the decade.
Now, that announcement right there came in the state of Arizona, and right now the president is on his way to fundraise in Texas, the states that are in the middle of the border crisis. But no visit, no events, no mention so far from President Biden about it. Why not? Come on in. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. All right, happy Wednesday. Here we are, here we go. Hanging out with us today, Aaron Perini is a Republican strategist. Julia Manchester, of course, the national political reporter for The Hill. Daniela Diaz is a congressional reporter for Politico. And Michael Starr Hopkins is a Democratic strategist. May Mailman, by the way, former Trump White House attorney, hanging out with us there as well. Hello, May. Nice to see you. May, we'll dip in and out here for a second. This is really smart politically, right? I don't think anyone would doubt that. The president, there's this CHIPS Act, it's passed, time to hand out the money. You go to a swing state, you show the big check, and you say, here we are, and this is what we've done. But Michael, he's in Arizona, he went to Texas, nothing on the border. Is that a mistake?
No, I mean, look, the president and Democrats have put forth a border security bill, an immigration bill that would at least start to deal with the issues that we're seeing. And Republicans abandoned it purely because Trump signed onto it. So outside of going to the border for a photo op, there's nothing really else that Democrats need to do. It's Republicans that need to actually do more than just Photoshop pictures.
But nothing needs to, I mean, like, he was down there a few weeks ago, and there he is along the border states. Was it a photo op then just 3 weeks ago for the president?
No, it was there to talk about why Republicans once again need to sign this bill. But being that they've refused to sign it purely because the former president says so, what's the president going to do? He's going to go talk about jobs in Arizona. That's the smart strategy.
Smart strategy, but is it a swing and a miss?
I disagree, respectfully so. This is a messaging misstep by this White House, because if you're looking at, he is doing this politically, right? He's going to Texas to raise money right now for
Dallas,
what will be a tough reelection effort. And the thing that he's getting hit hardest on right now in polling is immigration. You're right there. You just need to acknowledge it. You don't need to make a big border visit, but you have to acknowledge the honest truth to the American people that this administration has come up short in this moment on immigration, and he hasn't done that. So again, this is a messaging misstep when the White House could have stood up and said, hey, we will continue to fight every day to secure the border of the United States, and they aren't doing that.
May, when you saw that today, you thought what? And what would you say to Michael?
Yeah, I agree with Aaron that the American people are thinking, are there terrorist risks at the border? What are we doing about Haiti? Our border seems wide open. What are you doing? We've heard on the news that maybe there's executive action. Are you doing that? You say that you're not. Why not? These are the questions that people have. And there is a Senate race in Arizona that also depends on Biden's messaging here. And so it is malpractice for Biden to leave his Democratic candidate for Senate hanging there by not assuring people that he's doing something about the border. But the reason he cannot assure people he's doing something is because he's not. So he's actually trapped. He can't message on this. This is not a messaging problem. This is a policy problem. So first he's got to fix the policy, and then maybe he can think about talking about it.
Is he leaving the Senate candidate, Ruben Gallego, there out to dry?
I mean, I think Gallego would welcome Biden's visit in Arizona. He's facing a really tough election against Kari Lake. Now that Kyrsten Sinema's out of the race, it's going to be really, really difficult for him to win that state and get that seat as a progressive. Maybe welcoming Biden and talking about the border, something Ruben Gallego does regularly, could help him. But really, I talk to House Democrats and Senate Democrats regularly. I cover Congress, and they would say that Immigration is the elephant in the room. Biden should stick to just pushing Congress and addressing it, not address it himself. He should focus on the economy. He should focus on those big wins in infrastructure.
That's
what he should be doing.
I mean, we've been sitting here, Julia, for a while saying, look, nobody knows what the economy is going to be in November or October. Nobody knows. This White House, no one up here, no one across this country, right? It's a wild card. So what you can do is you can fly into these swing states and say, look, I did this and here's the money. That's what the president did today. But as Daniela mentions, it's the elephant in the room.
It is. And I guess there's the question of, do these swing state Democrats, and, I don't have Biden's approval ratings in front of me, but do they necessarily, if he's unpopular in Arizona or unpopular in some of these states, does he want, Sherrod Brown, for example, does Sherrod Brown want to campaign with Biden? I think that's a big question, and we're going to see that revealed in the coming months as we get deeper into the cycle. But speaking on the economy, it's not only Biden going to some of these swing districts, swing states to talk about it, but I thought it was interesting today. We saw some gains in the market. Now the White House, who never talks about the market or that, now they're suddenly talking about that. They need to cling on to anything economic so they can get that messaging out.
All right. We are now, by the way, starting to learn about what resources the Department of Homeland Security will and won't be given from now until the end of September. The White House and congressional negotiators hammered out a spending deal which would reportedly include an increase in detention beds and allow Border Patrol to have up to 22,000 agents. The deal, though, does not include new money for new border wall. Come on in, the congressman from Florida, Carlos Jimenez, who is also a member of the Homeland Security Committee. Congressman, good to talk to you as always. Nice to see you. DHS, we sort of have an outline now what they're going to get to deal with the border. Is it enough, as you see it from your perch on the Homeland Security Committee?
No, I don't think it is. I think, look, we have to negotiate because we don't control all the government. Our deal, or my thought is that if President Biden is really serious about controlling the border, he's got 64 different things that he can do. That's undoing the 64 things, the executive orders that got us into this mess to begin with. And so this whole thing that somehow he needs more funding, yeah, he needs more funding because he created a huge mess. Look, nothing changed from January 19th, 2021 to January 21st, 2021. The only thing that changed was the President of the United States and started undoing the executive orders of the previous administration that were working and then starting issuing his own, which aren't working. And so, no, this was a compromise. I'm not crazy about adding the beds. That just means that, hey, you can continue to fail at the border the way you've been failing for the last 3 years.
So here was the DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, Congressman, here in Washington yesterday. He says, it's a cause for a sigh of relief that we make it another day, but we are terribly, terribly underfunded. So is he right there? I mean, I heard you, I think, say there that they are sort of underfunded, but so do you agree with the DHS Secretary?
No, I don't. I don't agree with anything the DHS Secretary does. I think we just impeached him, for God's sakes. So, no. Look, again, the problem at the border, and has been told not only to the DHS Secretary, but probably to the President himself, is the policies. The policies of this administration is what's causing the mess at the border. He has to undo the policies that he is, the 64 steps that he's taken to create this mess. And by the way, if he starts to do that and shows some good faith, then maybe, look, if it turns out that he does need a little bit of money, or at least we know, hey, he's tried to undo the mess he started, let's give him a hand. But he doesn't do that. And he won't do that, because if he does, he'll be proving us right, that it was him all along, that it was the Secretary of Homeland Security all along that have failed to listen to their own people and have caused this huge mess that we have, which is the southern border.
Congressman, your home state of Florida, down south, you see what's going on in Cuba and you see what's going on in Haiti. The governor of your state, a Republican, Ron DeSantis, suggested in a radio interview within the past day here that he could start airlifting Haitian migrants to Martha's Vineyard. This is what he said. He said, we have our transport program that's going to be operational, so Haitians who land in the Florida Keys, their next stop very well may be Martha's Vineyard. You know this, Congressman. I used to cover you when I was in your office on that 35th floor or whatever there in the middle of downtown Miami. This is
not that high, 29th floor.
29th floor, all right. I was in the neighborhood. Haitian migrants have been coming to Florida annually, and the governor could have suggested that in the recent years, and he hasn't. But now he is. So is that serious policy?
Right. Well, I think we're looking at a mass migration because of the situation in Haiti, which is completely out of control. I've never seen it this bad in Haiti, and I've been in South Florida for over 60 years. And yes, we've had migrations from Haiti for a number of years, but he's fearing a mass migration. And unless we get a multinational peacekeeping force into Haiti to restore order, to put in jail the gang members, especially this guy called Barbecue, who, if we don't do anything about it, will be the next dictator of Haiti. And he's named Barbecue because he actually burns people. Okay, I think that he needs to look. There's an organization called CARICOM that is working to try to get a transitional government in there. The United States is involved in that effort. I think the president needs to go to the United Nations, get a multinational force to go into Haiti and restore order. Because no matter what you do, if you want to put a transitional government in Haiti, unless you restore order, it's going to be fruitless. So you have to restore order first. The United States, being the leader of the free world, being the leader in this hemisphere, needs to take the lead in that, go to the United Nations and get a multinational force to restore order in Haiti. If not, it's going to come to us, and it's coming to us already. So it's going to be our problem one way or the other. And the superpower that we are, we need to step up and make sure that that doesn't happen.
All right, we got to leave it there. Congressman Jimenez, nice to see you as always. Thanks for being back here on the Hill. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep. Aaron, you used to work for the Never Back Down, the super PAC that was trying to get Ron DeSantis elected as the next president of the United States. What about that? Flying Haitian migrants to Martha's Vineyard. Is it a stunt? As I mentioned to him there, I mean, you look at interdiction of Haitian migrants in South Florida, 2024, 2023, 2022. I could give you stats year after year. This isn't a new issue.
It's not a new issue, but this is a mass migration issue that has Florida really going what could be very overwhelmed. And this is not the first time we've seen Governor DeSantis put forward a policy proposal like this about moving immigrants that have come into the country into a different part, right? You've seen it with him do it before, where he sent them to Martha's Vineyard, where he sent them elsewhere, because the problem is that right now, the federal government is not addressing the issues that are causing all of these people coming over. And whether or not that's going to the UN or whatever the process is, this is his way to sound the alarm, is to move them into Democrat-held areas, to have these people moved so that they say, hey, now you understand a little bit of what Florida is going through. And to be fair, the Biden administration is moving a lot of people across this country on flights all of the time that nobody knows about. So for Governor DeSantis to do this really isn't that far of a stretch.
All right, Ron DeSantis today also told our Libby Dean, sort of suggesting that he is not going to campaign for Donald Trump. Watch.
This is not going to be a state that's competitive in November, and that's just the reality. So I don't anticipate there being much campaign here for the top of the ticket.
Here's how the Trump campaign responded. Ron really shouldn't flatter himself by assuming we'd want him on the campaign trail. We're actually trying to win. Zing.
Well, if there's one thing we've seen, it's that the state of Florida has moved more into the Republican category in terms of voter registration, in terms of turnout. And when the governor was speaking in that clip, he also mentioned that I can be helpful nationally down ballot, which we saw with him in the midterms. We saw him flip school boards. We saw him flip Miami-Dade County. You've seen the success that the governor's political operation does have in the state of Florida. And to President Trump's credit, he has Susie Wiles on his team. There are few political operatives in the country
Florida in and out.
Who knows Florida better than Susie Wiles.
Are you surprised that DeSantis wouldn't hit the trail for Trump, or is he setting himself up for 2028 potentially?
Yeah, potentially, but I'm not surprised. I mean, clearly there's obviously some tension there right now.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah. So just to put it lightly. But look, I mean, I think for Ron DeSantis, Aaron's absolutely right. I think he's going to be focusing on what's happening within Florida, the down ballot races. But just going back to the migrant crisis and the situation in Haiti, in covering Ron DeSantis, one thing he would always say is, I'm not a governor of a border state, but I'm a governor of a maritime state. And he would sort of talk about the possibility of this happening. What I'm curious about is going forward, because I think we could see maybe a similar situation happening from the border, also in Florida. And, is there tension between the federal government and the state of Florida government?
Hey, May, what'd you make of those comments there from Ron DeSantis real quick and the Trump campaign response?
Yeah, I mean, also, I think there's an interest issue, right? Ron DeSantis's thing is governing, and he's very good at it. And I don't even actually know what he's going to do for the next couple of years because he's already done everything that there is to do in the state of Florida. So, okay, I think he's exactly right. There's not a lot of need to get out there and campaign for the top of the ticket. But what states all need is good leadership when you have an unprecedented influx of migrants, including Haitian migrants. So Ron DeSantis' thing was always governing, not campaigning, in my opinion, and he should just focus on what he does best.
Real quick, Daniela.
Yeah, I think what he is saying about flying Haitian immigrants to Martha's Vineyard has worked before in getting Democrats' attention.
Oh, yeah.
And that is what they're trying to do when Republicans do, like Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis, do that sort of thing in flying migrants to Democratic states or Democratic cities. And it's worked.
It has.
And
all right.
We've seen that before.
All right. Still to come here from the Hill. Vladimir Putin, one of the United States' biggest adversaries, of course. But today in the halls of Congress, one member dressed up as the Russian leader. That right there, why he did it and what he was trying to prove. Plus, your drinking water. Could it eventually be compromised by China? Believe it or not, the White House is now warning governors all across the country. We'll speak with the former FBI and CIA agent about that possible threat. And on the other side of the break, did you ever think that you'd see a day where Democrats told the leader of Israel, you're not welcome to be here? It just happened. Those details in moments. And by the way, it is 65 and sunny here in Washington on a beautiful spring day. Would you look at that? I need Michael Starr to take off the sweater. It's too good in here. You're watching The Hill here on NewsNation. We're back in a few. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. So if actions speak louder than words, how about this decision today? The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu invited to speak to Republican senators remotely, and he did just that. But on the other side of the aisle, when Netanyahu asked to speak with Democratic senators, Chuck Schumer, the top Democrat in the Senate, reportedly declined, suggesting that it shouldn't happen in a quote-unquote partisan manner. Joining us now is the Democratic Congresswoman from North Carolina, Kathy Manning, who also once was the head of the Jewish Federations of North America and joins us here on the Hill once again. Congresswoman, always appreciate you having you back here. When I saw this reporting, I thought to myself, and I wonder your take, did you ever think that there would be a day in which Democratic leadership told the Prime Minister of Israel, essentially, you know what? You're not welcome to speak here?
Well, let me tell you, support for Israel has always been bipartisan. And the support of Americans for the Jewish democratic state of Israel has always been based on our shared democratic values. The relationship brings values to both of our countries because of our shared military, exercises our shared intelligence, and of course our shared values. Now, if the speaker really wants to do something to help the state of Israel, what he should do is bring the Senate bill to the House floor for a vote. As you well know, Israel needs our support, so does Ukraine. And that Senate bill that is waiting for us to approve it in the House is waiting for the Speaker. So if the Speaker wants to be helpful to Israel, bring that bill to the floor for a vote.
But what about not allowing him to speak? Isn't that how Washington works, Congresswoman, and how we deal with our allies? They wouldn't even listen to him. And I wonder if you think if that was a mistake.
No one has ever stopped Bibi Netanyahu from speaking. He certainly knows how to communicate with the American people. He certainly knows how to communicate with the Congress. Frankly, he's as good at communicating what he wants as any leader I know of in the world.
I wonder what you would say when you've heard the criticism. Democrats have an Israel problem. What would you say to that?
Well, I don't think that's the case at all. I think Democrats will continue to be supportive of the Jewish democratic state of Israel, particularly in their time of need. We saw President Biden rush to Israel to show his deep support after the horrific attack on October 7th by Hamas. He has continued to stand with Israel. And don't forget, we have, of the hostages that Hamas is still hanging on to, we have a number of them who are Americans. And we will continue to stand with Israel, and will continue to work to get those hostages released. My understanding is there are hostage negotiations going on right now.
You mentioned the House Speaker, Congresswoman Mike Johnson. There's a report in The Hill today, headline, quote, Johnson may invite Netanyahu to address Congress after Schumer comments. Should he? Should Mike Johnson give Benjamin Netanyahu the floor, a joint address to Congress?
If he wants to use it as a wedge and a political issue, that may well be what he decides to do. But as I said, if he really wants to help Israel, he needs to get that spending bill to the House floor for a vote. That's what he can do if he wants to be an effective leader. That's what he can do if he wants to help the Democratic ally, the state of Israel.
Congresswoman Manning, we will leave it there. Appreciate you always coming on, and we'll talk to you soon. Congresswoman Kathy Manning from North Carolina.
Happy to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Michael, I will ask you the same question that I asked the Congresswoman. Did you ever think you would see the day in which Democratic leadership told the Israeli prime minister, essentially, you are not welcome to speak here?
If it was Bibi Netanyahu, then at this point, honestly, yes. I think that's where.
So you think this is a Netanyahu issue?
Absolutely. That you can be anti-Netanyahu and still support the Israeli people. And here, I think that's where the Democratic Party has gotten. And I think at some point you will see Republicans get there as well. Because at the end of the day.
You think so?
Yeah, but Netanyahu's not a good faith actor right now. We need someone who's ready for the moment to bring peace. And that's not what Netanyahu's trying to do. He's trying to keep himself out of jail.
Why do you view him not as a good faith actor?
Because he's trying to keep himself out of jail in very many ways, is like Trump is trying to do. It's playing to the lowest common denominator, playing to our biggest fears rather than trying to bring us together.
Yeah, and look, if you look at views inside of Israel, Netanyahu is not exactly Mr. Popular either. Remember, October 7th, absolutely horrific, but it happened on his watch, and he's gotten a lot of backlash for how he prepared for that. A lot of the families of the hostages not happy with how these negotiations have gone. And when you look to the American Jewish population, look, the majority of American Jews have an unfavorable view of Benjamin Netanyahu. Not saying, whether but Chuck Schumer.
I think there's also pushback in the Jewish community, though, about how Democrats have, and how President Biden have been taking this over the last couple of months.
Absolutely. And I think what you saw with Chuck Schumer's remarks was trying to thread that needle, trying to say we don't support Netanyahu, but this is about Israel.
What did you make of what the Congresswoman said?
Well, she was very much trying to split hairs there. And to your point that they're trying to say that Democrats have a Netanyahu issue and not an Israel issue, the thing that Democrats seem to keep ignoring in this is that he is the leader right now. And calling for him to be ousted is as Netanyahu said, like trying to oust George W. Bush right after 9/11. You don't ask for the overthrowing of a government during a crisis because you disagree with their position 100% of the time. And I think that's the bigger issue for Democrats right now.
I would just say that I think the problem is he's contributing to the crisis and making it worse. And I think that's where we're now.
He's been very clear what his goal is, and that's the evisceration of Hamas, and he wants nothing less than that to be totally done.
What are you hearing?
I'm seeing this divide in the caucus and both sides. I mean, there's Democrats that are still very pro-Israel that will still support aid to Israel, and they don't like what Schumer did last week in his speech where he called for Bibi Netanyahu and new elections, and that saying that if he's the leader, there's not going to be peace in the Middle East. So it's really divided.
All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill. You may not think twice when you drink water at home, right? You just go get the water, go drink it. But the U.S. is now putting states on alert for a new type of cyber threat. The letter that just went out from the White House to governors all across this country involving Iran, China, and your water. And does X mark the spot? How one world leader is now trying to use his border to get the attention of Elon Musk. You are watching The Hill here on NewsNation. Stay with us. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. So there is a warning now from the White House to governors across the country. The president's national security advisor and the head of the Environmental Protection Agency warning that both China and Iran pose a threat to our water systems. Now, there's even the suggestion that China, through a cyber group known as Volt Typhoon, is using this as a hedge just in case there's conflict between the world's two superpowers. Quote, federal departments and agencies assess with high confidence that Volt Typhoon actors are pre-positioning themselves to disrupt critical infrastructure operations in the event of geopolitical tensions and or military conflicts. Come on in, NewsNation national security contributor, Tracy Walder, best title on the planet, former FBI, former CIA as well. I love it. Tracy, good to talk to you. So I saw this. What do you mean that what's going on here? That China is essentially hedging right now via cybersecurity to try to infiltrate our water systems? What's going on?
So there's a couple things here actually that bother me, Blake. And so the first one is obviously what you mentioned. Really, what this system does, Volt Typhoon or Insidious Taurus, there's several different interesting names for it, is it kind of lays in wait. And that's actually really disturbing because during that laying in wait time, it could be 5 years, it could be 3 years, it could be 10 years. It is gathering intelligence and information from whatever site it has invaded. And it sort of lives off the land there. And that's how it survives for all that time. And then they can sort of awaken it to do the damage that we were sort of discussing. But I'd like to take it one step further, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
The fact that Iran is also, kind of married to this through the IRGC Cyber Command is also very disturbing. Typically, the Chinese and the way that they hack is really more information gathering, maybe trade secret stealing. That's really what they've done in the past. Whereas the IRGC in Iran has more done impersonations. But what we're seeing here is actual action. And that's really disturbing.
You'll remember the AT&T outage from, I don't know, a month or so ago. And at the time, Marco Rubio, who's the top Republican on the Senate Intelligence Committee, sent out this tweet. Here's what he wrote. He said, I don't know the cause of the AT&T outage. We later found out it was nothing malicious. But he said, but I do know it will be 100 times worse when China launches a cyber attack on America on the eve of a Taiwan invasion. And it won't just be cell service they hit. It will be your power, your water, and your bank. Is he... So he's maybe got one of the three there, right? What about the other two? Your power and your bank. Is he on to something there?
I think he's absolutely right. Look, as much as we would hate to admit it, we can live without our cell phone and without the ability to get on the internet.
Right.
But we cannot survive without access to clean drinking water. That's scientifically proven. And so
oxygen and water, right?
Oxygen and water, or even more scary, if they're able to control the flow of chemicals in and out of that water at treatment plants, that's even more disturbing. But we know that China has made infiltrations into our banking systems, into some of our software systems. So we know that they have done this. So I think he's 3 out of 3 there.
Something else that caught my attention, CISA, which is the cybersecurity government branch, they advise that you reduce exposure to public-facing internet and that you change default passwords. Come on, Tracy, is that really the recommendation? Like, don't use password 123? That's not how we're beating this thing.
So I know as silly as that sounds, Blake, you're not wrong. But the thing is, that's how Volt Typhoon gets in, is through sort of either archaic or stolen passwords, as well as updates that haven't been done, and old modems. That's how this gets in. And I know that sounds so basic to you and I, right? Update that password, install that software update. But to some people, it's not. So that's why they issued that warning. It really is that basic. This thing gets in very easily.
Not suggesting my password is password 123, but we'll leave it there. Tracy Walder, thanks so much. Great to talk to you as always. Catch you again soon.
Thank you.
All right. Meantime, the Biden administration is taking aim at the auto industry, unveiling some of the most significant climate regulations in our nation's history. New EPA standards now slow down the implementation of stricter emissions limits by 2 years and suggest that the auto industry can meet the standards if 56% of vehicles are electric by 2032. But that is an ambitious goal, considering electric vehicles currently make up about 7% of sales. And here are just 2 headlines from the past week. Look at these here. EV maker Fisker is pausing production. for one of its vehicles for 6 weeks, while Hertz's CEO is stepping down after that company's foray into EVs. So is this really about climate, or is this about, you know what, EVs just aren't ready for prime time?
It's about the market right now. It's about the market demand. The market demand was not where they anticipated it would be. Currently, you're looking at a market share of about 8% of all vehicle sales are EV. And that's to even put aside the fact that most of the components for batteries in EVs are made in China. Like you can go into the geopolitical issues that exist with this as well. But even the auto industry itself is saying we can't meet this threshold, and it will be a stretch in order for us to do so. And this is just another political promise by the Biden administration that's going to fall short.
The messaging here is climate, but I think it's really EVs.
Well, climate, the argument that we're hearing from the Biden administration is EVs being climate. I mean, it means clean energy. It means, being on the road and not guzzling gas, not spending that money. But we're really seeing that the need for EVs, we probably all know someone that drives an EV or wants an EV. Teslas are pretty popular. The need or the want of an EV, there's not the infrastructure for it. Right. And that is what we're seeing regularly.
I had that very problem during the holidays. I had a Tesla. We were driving up and down.
Look at your problems. Look at your problems.
It was a rental car. Come on. That's all they had. That's why the Hertz guy's out of business now.
Hey,
May, real quick. Donald Trump's been talking about Chinese EVs, right? And saying we can't go that route.
Yeah, I mean, something's got to happen. So Ford right now loses $36,000 per EV. So if China is able to make them and sell them at $10,000 and actually make money, then people are going to do that. So the U.S. has to decide not whether they're going to put 100% tariff on EVs, but whether they are going to try and force consumers to purchase them. Because if you're forcing consumers to purchase them, they're going to get them from China, and they're going to enrich China. Right. And if you think that it's bad to have your water hacked, now your car is hacked too. You can't even go anywhere. You can't get clean water.
And the reason why I bring up Trump is because if this becomes a campaign issue, then you got to wonder what Joe Biden says and how he counteracts that. Anyways, before we head to break, check out this headline out of the Caribbean. Elon Musk invited to the Dominican Republic, speaking of EVs, to discover potential investments. The offer comes after Musk shared a post on X about a 12-foot tall smart security fence being built between the DR and Haiti to protect the country amid the ongoing violence in Haiti. Musk thought the Dominican Republic's concept, Julia, was quite interesting.
That is interesting. It's once again Elon Musk inserting himself
into the conversation.
Into the conversation. There you go.
All right. Well, coming up here on the Hill, why one congressman took to the halls of Congress today wearing a Vladimir Putin mask, and why one side of the aisle is trying to target the use of DEI in medical schools. That, in part, just some of what Congress has been up to this week. You are watching The Hill here on NewsNation as we take a live look at the White House. See you soon. Hearing investigating Hunter Biden. Moskowitz mocked the hearing, as we now know that a former FBI informant at the center of the investigation is suspected of having ties to Russian intelligence. Here was the congressman.
I just came to thank James Comer for taking all of our intelligence and using it in the committee. Maybe he can come see the technology in our grocery stores.
So as you see Moskowitz there dressed up as Vladimir Putin, what do you see?
I know it's supposed to be funny, but I just don't find it funny. There's enough serious stuff about the Putin, kind of Hunter Biden, campaign stuff that I think we need to actually focus on real issues and not be making jokes out of investigations.
I found it interesting because obviously this was to get our attention.
Yeah,
and it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked. But also it's kind of hypocritical, right? Democrats are constantly accusing Republicans of theatrics on the Hill, and then here's this freshman Democrat coming to the Hill with a mask on before a really important hearing. It's
not just any mask, a Vladimir Putin mask.
I mean, it's saying a lot, and it got a lot of attention, it worked if that was his goal.
Yeah, I think Danielle is absolutely right. But Michael brings up a really interesting point. I mean, we're in the month after Alexei Navalny's death. It's obviously everything involving Putin is so incredibly serious. The way dissidents in Russia are treated, journalists in Russia are treated. It's getting to the point where it's almost like we don't take it. I think stuff like this makes us not take it as seriously.
Amen to that.
What'd you see there?
I mean, it was an earned media gimmick, and the Hill press corps ate it up, and we're all still talking about it. I agree. I think it's a deeply unserious move, but that's what he wanted to do, and everybody's going to talk about it.
All right, by the way, this just in, we are now learning that the House Oversight Committee Chairman, James Comer, who you heard referenced there, plans to invite President Joe Biden to testify before that committee. Republicans want to hear how and why money from overseas came into the Biden family and their associates. You're laughing. I mean, come on.
We're finally going to get our West Wing moment.
There we go. Of Joe Biden walking down. I mean, that's a stunt. Come on. No?
Well, I actually don't think it is a stunt. And the reason I say that is because there has been a lot of inconsistency in what Joe Biden has said regarding Hunter, regarding the ongoing investigations right now, and what's been happening there. And there are questions. He's not being subpoenaed. He's not being forced. He's being invited to come up. This really isn't a big show of force from the House here. But I think that it's fair to ask the president to come testify when there's clear questions, because he hasn't been honest so far.
Fair as he's sitting in the Oval Office?
I mean, the president's already given multiple interviews about this. Hunter Biden has done interviews about this. Republicans have put on Russian operatives who have now said that they've recanted their story. I just think we're in a moment now where the country is ready to move on.
But let's remember that Joe Biden said he had no idea about his son's dealings. He had nothing to do with any of that. And this investigation is showing that that's blatantly false and that the president was clearly aware. So either there's a cognitive issue here and he doesn't actually remember what happened, or that he's being dishonest. And either way, the American people deserve the answer.
Bipartisanship. We'll investigate this, and you guys can investigate the Jared Kushner stuff. And
completely different, and you know that.
So we've reached out. NewsNation's reached out to the White House for comment. So far, haven't heard back from them. This just broke. If I set the over/under at 0.1% of this actually happening, you taking the over or the under?
I'd be incredibly shocked if
I got
Joe
you on
Biden goes to the
on the under of 0.1%.
I would be shocked as well. And speaking of political theater, I mean,
I'll take the over. Come on. I love a good bet. I love a good bet.
Take the over. All right. Meantime, another major focus on Capitol Hill: DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Two Republican congressmen, Drs. Greg Murphy and Brad Wenstrup, are now tackling DEI in medicine with the Educate Act, as they call it. Now, the bill aims to, quote, prohibit graduate medical schools from receiving federal financial assistance if such schools adopt certain policies and requirements relating to DEI. Now, Murphy wants to restore medical education to its life-saving mission, as he put it. Here's what he told NewsNation's Leland Vittert, host of On Balance, last night.
We're not dealing with art school. We're not dealing with English school. We're talking about medical school. We're talking about where people's lives are at stake. And this is polluting what is the last bastion of really, I believe, excellence in this country. We should demand excellence from our doctors, not identity politics.
Oh.
Michael?
Last I checked, I don't know any underqualified black people, Hispanic people, Latino people that are getting into medical school just because of DEI. What it does, it takes people who aren't just the kids of doctors and the kids of lawyers and gives them an opportunity to be able to go back and serve their communities.
Look, I talk to members all the time, and this is an issue that really resonates with voters. And it's very obvious that this is, I mean, it's election year. They know it. They're trying to keep the majority. And this is why we're seeing, these kinds of bills introduced in Congress regularly. Now, will it get a vote on the House floor? Maybe. Will it have enough votes to pass? Unlikely, considering Johnson's incredibly slim majority, but it's still a messaging bill that will resonate.
Right. This is the kind of stuff that'll turn black voters out if Republicans aren't careful. We really care.
Out for Democrats.
Out for Democrats, absolutely.
You think so?
I think that remains to be seen, but this does poll well against DEI overall. The people do not support the DEI movement.
Yeah, there's been a messaging thing.
There's been a change.
I'm not going to discount that this is a messaging bill. I won't discount that, and I totally agree with Daniela's assessment here that this probably won't get a vote. So this truly is just the conversation to be had. But when it comes to voters are saying they don't support things that would appear to dilute the educational standards of the higher education system in this country, and that's the larger focus.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting you bring out how it could turn out black voters, voters of color. Those are, black voters in particular is a constituency that has, I wouldn't say the Biden campaign is struggling with them, but they're not doing as well with them as past Democrats have. So I'm curious to see how Democrats work to message on this.
By the way, states that have passed anti-DEI bills, we can show it real quick. It's I don't know, give or take a dozen. You see it here on the screen. So it's happening all over the country. Voters' views on anti-DEI bans, 66% 56% support, 32% opposed. What's kind of wild, show those numbers real quick, if we can. Just 3% are unsure. You rarely find an issue, right? Am I wrong? Where the unsure don't know, name ID, whatever it is
almost
is
anything
that low.
in those states that have passed would almost largely line up along party lines in that fashion.
You know who's been on the DEI conversation warpath back and forth on social media?
Ooh.
Mark Cuban. He's going on the back and forth. But Mark Cuban, as you know, no fan of Donald Trump. The billionaire business owner, though, recently said he wouldn't vote for Joe Biden, or he would vote for Joe Biden over Trump. But why now is Mark Cuban on social media coming to the defense of that man right there? It just happened. Cuban said, you know what? And he said this to a Democratic lawmaker. I got to correct the record. What Mark Cuban's saying on the other side of the break.
Tonight, American TV personality Dr. Phil joins Chris live, the major network television project he has in the works. Plus, the one and only Bill O'Reilly breaks down the day's biggest headlines, a special Cuomo with limited commercial interruption. Tonight at 8/7 Central on NewsNation.
Adulthood. That's why vaccines matter so much. For 40 years, Rotary and partners have delivered vaccines globally. Like here and even here, in your neighborhood and around the world. Rotary is ensuring children grow up safe from preventable diseases.
Smokey the Bear.
Then you know why Smokey tells you when he sees you passing through. Remember, please be careful, it's the least that you can do.
What you desire, don't play with matches, don't play with fire.
After 80 years of learning his wildfire prevention tips, Smokey Bear lives within us all. Learn more at SmokeyBear.com. And remember,
only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
With more than 5,000 journalists working in newsrooms coast to coast, this is NewsNation, America's fastest-growing cable news network.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
when the storm rolls in, my time to find a pet-friendly evacuation center will have run out.
The scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
I'll face a hurricane without meds. Now that's a tough pill to swallow.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at ready.gov/older adults. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
I just got a text asking me to approve a bank transfer I didn't make. I bet you get messages like this too. So much of our lives are online today, from email to banking and everything in between. To make sure my information was protected, I checked out CISA's Secure Our World website for simple steps to stay safe online. Now I know how to protect myself from scammers, and you can learn too. Go to CISA at cisa.gov/Secure Our World.
Today alone, 5,370 people in the United States will be diagnosed with cancer. That's why Stand Up to Cancer funds and develops the newest and most promising cancer treatments. Stand Up to Cancer wants to provide you with every opportunity to join in this mission. By donating your home, land, or commercial property, you can help Stand Up to Cancer fund innovative cancer research. Stand Up to Cancer makes the process easy, and it may be tax deductible. Visit standuptocancer.org/giveproperty to learn more.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. So the billionaire entrepreneur Mark Cuban is calling out the Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu, saying that he is wrong after the lawmaker accused former President Trump about lying about his net worth. On X, Lieu wrote, that means he is lying. How do I know? Math. Math is a thing.
Math is hard.
Yeah, you got to be right if you're citing math. Cuban, though, responded with an investing lesson saying, quote, Ted, you know I am no supporter of Trump. He goes on to say net worth is completely different than cash in the bank. We were in a zero interest rate environment for a long, long time, so keeping cash in the bank or even money markets was dumb. Now, Cuban has made it clear that he plans to vote for Joe Biden in November over Donald Trump. Leland Vittert, host of On Balance. You cite math, and then Mark Cuban says...
You know what also is dumb? Arguing about math with members of Congress on Twitter.
You think so?
Yeah. Look, what's happening with Donald Trump is fascinating.
Yeah.
And look, reasonable people can agree. that the questions about Donald Trump's net worth, what he has been worth, even in his own words, depends on how he feels when he gets up in the morning. That it's pretty obvious that he's having some issues.
The question, and we talked about this on the show the other day, is if and when Letitia James starts seizing his assets, how all that plays politically. And that could be coming in the upcoming days.
I think it could. I would just caution to anybody who is excited about that possibility. Just remember what four indictments did to Donald Trump's poll numbers.
Was up into the few things go up and to the right.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
Yeah.